attend NMC. Upon graduation in 1981, he began a career working on the Great Lakes. Since then, he worked his way up to a captain position on a container ship working off the coast of China. So without further ado, our Speaker of Honor, Mr. Jeff Eisenmark.
Larry Brown is here today.
Yes.
Crockers. Mortons. Hermans. Kiesels. Kohlers. Grants. Any Stows. Walters. The names I mentioned were some of my own classmates. Some of those families have been in this village since its very founding. My parents came to this town in 1955, leaving Grand Rapids to find a sense of place. A place where they could raise their children away from the trappings of city life. We all must come from somewhere, as fate would have it. Some are born in Shanghai, Flint, or Bangladesh. We are from here, a special place indeed. It is the providence of a commencement speaker to instill inspiration into the graduates in their lives ahead. I am neither a politician, educator, or a member of the clergy, so inspirational public speaking is not my forte. But as I spent a lifetime as a sailor, I will attempt to do this through a few tales of my youth, a couple sea stories that perhaps will resonate with your lives ahead. 41 years ago this month, at the age of 12, I got a job on the Manitou Island Ferry, and knew even then I wanted to grow up to be a professional sailor. It's well known in my world that all fairy tales begin with once upon a time. And all sea stories begin with, this is no BS. So, this is no BS. In the second grade, I was a pretty hyperactive kid. The doctors in those days were often medicating my type to calm us down. For breakfast, my mom would give me the pill. I didn't like it because it was bitter and it made me sleepy. By lunch, I would usually start to perk up, but afterward I would begin to fade. One day, I figured out that Mom was putting the pill into my sandwich. So the next day, at lunch, I traded my ham and cheese for my classmate Randy's meatballs. Of course, at around 1:30, I'm bouncing out of my desk before Randy was sliding out of the floor. It didn't take the teacher long, Mrs. Miller, to figure out what had happened. She went to my parents and told them to take me off the medications, and she would handle me. It was this type of educator that have long served at Sutton's Bay. The teachers I had while in attendance have made a lasting impression. Mr. Green was one of the most optimistic people I have ever known. Mr. Smith taught me that science really was fun. Mr. Eckersley scared the bejesus out of me. But he taught me to love algebra and use it as my ability to reason. Mr. Skradowski and Anderson taught me to understand the concepts of government, and Mrs. Arai taught me to love literature. You graduates may not realize it now, but you'll find that one or more of your teachers have made a profound difference in your lives. I thank all of them for their dedication and direction. After a great many misadventures through high school, 35 years ago, I sit right where you sit today. But it's all too common, sometimes you need a kick to get you started. My parents were preparing to move to Leland, where they lived for a short time, before returning to Sutton's Bay, where they belonged. Within days of graduation, I went on a sailing trip with Zach Hull and Wes Wilson up to Charlevoix and Beaver Islands. After about 10 days, I returned home to find in the meantime they sold my bed at a yard sale. They offered the height of bed, but it was a not so subtle hint that it was time to get on with it. Your parents will never stop being your parents. One of the most difficult transitions for a parent is to redefine the relationship with a child as they become adults. For you graduates who are the eldest in the family, this can be especially difficult. Forgive them. They've done the best they could. Try to understand them as you become an adult and stay lives of your own. Be patient with each other. Don't let petty disagreements linger. For you graduates who are the youngest in your family, keep a close eye on your head. After graduating from the Great Lakes Maritime Academy, I began my life as a ship's officer on the lakes. Shipping was tough in the 80s, but I stuck with it. Moonlighting as a bartender, a home house painter, snowmaker, timber lead, whatever it was to keep following my dream. After about 10 years, I risen to first mate on a tanker. the Jupiter. I still had the lust for travel to faraway shores. I'd gotten off the ship in Detroit while driving up I-75. I saw great Calhoun black smoke rising over Bay City. These are the days before cell phones. I pulled over, called my mom from the payphone, and she said, "Well, you're on CNN, the Jupiter is on fire." And not that was so subtle hint, it was once again time to move on. I had met the love of my life at about that time, and together we struck out for the West Coast in a Texas canoe. San Francisco is a beautiful but difficult city, especially for a small town boy like myself. I painted a lot of houses. My wife waited on a lot of tables. We made ourselves a home. We traveled around California, camping, cutting coupons for cheap hotels, finding wineries that offered free tastings, exploring a vast and beautiful state. Often in the humblest of times in your lives, you will find the simplest of joys. Through the years, I've struggled through typhoons, hurricanes, and storms the size of Australia. But I've also seen exotic lands that have been welcomed by human kindness the world over. I've seen whales, dolphins, and fish that could fly. The sea itself has a profound effect on me. It brings me a sense of peace and calm. Whatever brings you such a sense, be it a walk in the woods, reading a good book, remember to take time out of the hectic days and years ahead. Find the things that bring you peace. It's essential. On December 31st, 2000, I first met a ship out of Los Angeles, bound for Honolulu, 1,000 miles from nowhere. At the end of my night watch, the captain came up to the bridge and asked me if I was going to stay up until midnight, bringing the new year. I replied, "With all due respect, sir, this year I was evicted from my apartment by a greedy landlord. My wife has been diagnosed with MS in a 5-month span. My father and mother both passed away. All I really want with this year is it to be over." Taken aback, he said, "Well, you should set up a flare to put the year to rest." It was a clear and moonless night. I launched the parachute flare into the inky darkness. Inside the bridge, marine radio suddenly crackled. "Calling ship in distress! Calling ship in distress!" The captain ran to the radio and explained to the other ship, bound from Panama from Yokohama, that they're celebrating the year a little early. There was a metaphorical beauty that in one of the darkest moments of my life, the sound of cry for help in the most unlikely of places, somebody heard it. You too will have great triumphs and tragedies you cannot now imagine. But remember that in your toughest times, help is always standing by, and you must not be afraid to ask for it. Some misfortunes are inevitable in life. Most you will never see coming. When you get knocked down by one, the most important thing is to get up, dust yourself off, and move forward. There is always more adventure to be had in this life. Don't let the hard times keep you down. After that bad year, we needed the help that only a nest could provide. In 2001, I returned to my family, back to that sense of place I'd left so long ago, back home. I bought a little house on Lincoln Street, only steps away from the old stone school with my sister and brother. Years that have followed, I relearned why it was my parents moved here. Though they are gone, their fingerprints remain throughout this village. Not only is it a wonderful place, its people have welcomed us with open arms, rekindled old friendships, and made many new ones. Today you are surrounded by the friends of your youth. They will be the most unique friends you will ever have. No matter how far up the social, political, or corporate ladders they may climb, you will always remember them just as they are now. Remember the dumb and painfully embarrassing things you did together, the shared experience of growing up. In today's social media, it's easier than ever to stay connected, and in the years ahead, do so. Last year, my old friend Jeff Herman came to visit me in San Francisco for the first time in 20 years. Over a glass of wine in Napa Valley, we looked at each other and without words said, "What took us so long?" And what I wouldn't give to sit around and have a few laughs with Rick Kurtz. These friends are precious, and always will be. And 35 years from now, you can look at your yearbook and think, "What was I thinking with that hair?" Many of you will not go to college, but it's not for everyone. Whatever path you take, always strive to do the best that you can. Your lives ahead, you will develop principles and convictions, but do not be afraid of compromise. Compromise does not reflect either weakness or cowardice, and is the only way that anything ever gets done in this world. Travel is my passion, and you will develop your own if you haven't already. Make a plan and keep at it, but always be ready to change course and follow your dreams. But most importantly, have some fun along the way. It all starts here, it all starts now. decide to make Suttonsville your home, you have made a wise choice. It's been my honor to be allowed to wax poetic here today. 13 was always my lucky number, and I wish the best of fortune to the class of 13 for their adventures ahead. I'll finish with another moment at sea where I just joined my shipmates for coffee. They were discussing their glory days in high school, not something I tend to think of much. And one of them asked, "So what were you in high school, Captain? Bulldog, an elk, a Mustang, or God forbid, a Trojan?" My head held high, I said I was and